Today, we're diving into the United Nations vision for the future of our cities. It's a future that's supposed to be smarter, more sustainable, and really built for all of us. So you might be asking, why the big push for change right now?
Well, it all really boils down to this one huge number, 68%. This single statistic is pretty much reshaping our entire world, and it's the reason we urgently need a new blueprint for our cities.
That's right. Think about that for a second. By the middle of this century, more than 2/3 of all people on Earth are going to be living in cities. This massive shift is already putting a ton of pressure on our urban centers, creating all sorts of challenges, from traffic jams and pollution to overcrowding and, yeah, growing inequality. So the big question is, how do we possibly deal with all of this?
Now, the answer you hear everywhere is smart cities. It's a huge buzzword, but the UN is pushing for something more, something that goes beyond just stuffing our cities with tech. They're calling for a people-centered approach, which means we've got to look past the hype.
So if you look at the official, UN-backed definition, you'll see the focus isn't really on the technology itself. The very first thing it mentions is improving quality of life, and it ends with this crucial part about meeting the needs of present and future generations. The tech, the information and communication technologies, well, that's just the tool. The goal is human progress.
Okay, so that's the dream, right? A fantastic vision, but here comes the reality check. For this whole idea to work for everyone, we have to face this massive obstacle that could derail the entire project, the Great Digital Divide.
And the scale of this problem is, wow, it is just staggering. I mean, just look at the gap in basic digital infrastructure. In Europe, you've got about 36 fixed broadband subscriptions for every 100 people. Now compare that to Africa, that's less than 1. How can you possibly build a smart city if most people don't even have the basic wiring to get online?
But here's the thing, it's not just about having access. It's also about being able to use it. A shocking 39% of the world's population lives somewhere they could get mobile broadband, but they just don't use the internet. This is what we call the usage gap, and it's mostly driven by two things: the crazy high cost of phones and data, and a real lack of digital skills.
So the bottom line is this isn't just one simple problem. It's actually a whole bunch of deep, interconnected gaps. You've got a 20% skills gap between developed and developing nations. There are 58 countries with literally no laws to protect your data. Get this, a staggering 95% of city websites aren't even fully accessible for people with disabilities. And in Africa, less than a quarter of cities have an actual strategic plan for any of this.
Okay, so the challenges are enormous, I get it, but it is not an impossible task, not by a long shot. All across the globe, cities are already proving that this whole people-centered progress thing is actually possible. So let's take a look at what's working.
These examples are so cool because they show what happens when you use technology to solve real local problems. In Barcelona, a smart traffic system managed to cut congestion by 30%. In Freetown, Sierra Leone, a simple app completely changed the game for waste collection for over 46,000 people. And in Nacogdoches, Mexico, they're tackling their housing crisis by 3D printing an entire community of tough, affordable homes. It's all about using the right tool for the right job.
All right, so we've seen the vision, we know the roadblocks, and we've seen some solid proof that this can actually work. The question now is, what's the plan to make this the norm everywhere, not just in a few places? Well, the UN report lays out a really clear path forward.
It really all starts with a plan. And this quote from a smart city leader in Bangladesh, it just nails it. Without a shared vision, you've got everyone pulling in different directions, and you just get stuck. Having a common agenda isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely essential.
So that agenda is built on a pretty solid 4-part strategy. Step 1, you have to aggressively bridge that digital divide in all its forms: the infrastructure, the skills, and the cost. Then step 2 is about building up local capabilities, training city employees and empowering communities to lead their own change. Step 3, this has to be backed up by real collaboration, finding new ways for public and private groups to work together. And finally, step 4, you got to wrap all of this in smart, harmonized regulations so that things like data protection and environmental goals are built in from the very beginning. And that really brings this whole conversation right back to your doorstep. Because this isn't just about some global report. It's about the streets where we all live. The technology is here, but remember, it's just a tool. So the real question, the one I'll leave you with, is this: is your city getting smarter? And maybe even more important, is it getting smarter for everyone?